So what's good, TMG fam? It's your boy Ellen, and I'm back with another reaction. How y'all feel? Welcome back to the channel. Salute. Now, this next video we're getting into, man, is the top 10 terrifying UFO abduction cases that even skeptics can't deny. All right, so if you're new, subscribe, join the family, and spam that like button. Let's check these out.
So we now know that aliens are real, so are we gonna start believing the people who said they were abducted by them? Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. I'm your host Emily, and today we're counting down our list of the top 10 terrifying UFO abduction cases that even skeptics can't deny. Coming in at number 10 is Antonio Villas Boaz. On the night of October 16th, 1957, Antonio Villas Boaz was plowing fields when he saw what he described as a red star in the night sky that approached him, growing in size. The craft began descending to land in the field, and he decided to leave on his tractor, but its lights and engine died, so he decided to continue on foot.
Something to think about, right? Think about where you hear a lot of these cases taking place, right? Fields, crops, wood, like it's always near something like that. Keep that in mind.
However, he was seized by a 5-foot-tall humanoid who was wearing gray coveralls and a helmet. Its eyes were small and blue, and instead of speech, it made noises like barks or yelps.
The Grays. He said gray. I want to think about that too. The Grays.
Beings then joined and dragged him inside their aircraft. Once inside the craft, Antonio said he was stripped of his clothes and covered from head to toe with a strange gel. He was then led to a large semicircular room through a doorway that had strange red symbols written over it. They then took blood from him and took him to a third room where some kind of gas was pumped into the room, which made him violently ill. Shortly after this, Antonio was joined in the room by another humanoid. This one, however, was female, very attractive. Antonio was then given back his clothing and taken on a tour of the ship by the humanoids. He was then escorted off the ship and watched as it took off, glowing brightly. When he returned home, he discovered that only 4 hours had passed. Now, did he help create one of the first alien-human hybrids? I think so. Number 9, Elizabeth Clara.
What?
Elizabeth Clara was a South African woman who, starting in 1956, publicly claimed to have been contacted by aliens multiple times between 1954 and 1963. Her first visitation supposedly occurred when she was just 7 years old, and she was one of the first women to claim relationship with an extraterrestrial. She promoted an idea of a better...
They blocked it out, but I think we all know what was blocked out right there. Wow. And see, people talk about, is that what they're doing to us? That's scary.
World and beliefs in a cosmic consciousness. In her book Beyond the Light Barrier, she strived to convey a message of peace, love, understanding, and environmentalism, which she credited to the superior wisdom of an advanced and immaculately Hopian Venusian civilization. She also ended up promoting conspiracy theories of an international cover-up that kept vital information from the public and claimed to have been threatened with abduction to press her to revealing details about alien technology. Number 8, Terrell Copeland. The Virginia pilot Terrell Copeland claimed that he was abducted by aliens, particularly because he was a Marine. Terrell claimed that his first experience with aliens occurred in 2007 when he captured footage of what he believed to be a UFO on his cell phone from his apartment in Suffolk, Virginia. It was an orb of light, just a big ball of light. It wasn't moving, it was solid white. The other was directly across the street from it, up 300 feet above the ground, and was changing colors very rapidly, he said. He alleged that it wasn't until after he published the footage online that things truly became strange. I woke up from a nap by the sound of someone trying to enter my apartment, and I said, "Who is it?" There was no answer. You could see the doorknob moving and scratching at the door. The firearm, it was on my table, and my thought was to get up and check. Despite the urge to get up, Terrell was paralyzed and only able to move.
I knew she was about to say that, man. Like, how do you can't even defend against anything like that. When they can enter in, they can mess with your mind, your subconscious, you know what I'm saying? And then render you just pretty much lifeless. You can't really move. It's nothing you'd be like, oh, why didn't they do this? Or, oh, why didn't he try to get out of there or defend him? He couldn't move. I've heard different cases like that. Dude was in the woods and he walked up on something and it was speaking to him through his mind. and he couldn't move his body. This is scary, man.
His eyes. Suddenly, he heard a voice through the door tell him, "You don't need that weapon, we won't harm." He then began to experience missing hours as well, and he was incapable of accounting for 4 waking hours during a span of 2 nights. "I was in a room and I saw a woman who did not have complete human features. She had the typical black eyes that you hear about. She had an elongated skull, and that startled me. The next memory I have is me standing on my balcony waving at this cylinder-shaped ship," he said. Number 7. Charles Hixson and Calvin Parker. The Pescalua abduction was a UFO sighting and alien abduction in 1973, in which Charles Hixson and Calvin Parker claimed they were abducted by aliens while fishing in Mississippi. On the evening of October 11th...
Now, this one here is one of the most famous ones. We've reacted to this one. We've checked this one out before, so I'm familiar with this one. The other ones, not so much.
1973, 42-year-old Charles Hixson and 19-year-old Calvin Parker told the Jackson County, Mississippi Sheriff's Office that they were fishing off a pier on the west bank of the river when they heard a whirling whiz sound, saw 2 flashing blue lights, and observed an oval-shaped object 30 to 40 feet across 8 to 10 feet high. They claimed that they were conscious but paralyzed, while 3 creatures with robotic slit mouths and crab-like pincers took them aboard the object and subjected them to an examination. Number 6. Thomas Reed. On September 1st, 1969, Thomas Reed and his family in Berkshire County, Massachusetts saw a UFO. In the car with his mother, brother, and grandmother that night, the family noticed a group of glowing orbs dash out of the roadside trees. It came to a stop off the right side of the road, Thomas said. Everything got really calm. It was like being in the middle of a hurricane. It was just like dead silent. Then there was an eruption of crickets and frogs, and it got really loud, and that was it. Then the family suddenly found itself back in the car, but they had inexplicably lost 2 hours of memory. Stranger still, Thomas's mother and grandmother had somehow switched car seats. He said over time the family regained some memory of the incident, including having been to a hangar-like facility with other people. We encountered something. It was definitely not of this world. The hangar thing we were in was huge. It was larger than a football field.
So what do y'all think they're doing? Other than just the typical, they're studying us, right? What are they doing? Why would they take you, analyze you, and then put you back? Are they changing something about you? Is it something about you specifically they need to get from you? What is going on?
The hallway we had seen was circular with a Y configuration, almost to control the flow of traffic, and this one room had a bowed-in wall that was round, he said. Number 5. Whitley Strieber. Whitley Strieber had written fiction for more than 40 years, and he said his writing streak was interrupted one night in the late 80s by an alien abduction in upstate New York. The alleged incident occurred on the night of December 26, 1985, as Whitley slept alone in his cabin in the woods. Woken by a strange noise, he saw a small non-human entity approaching his bed. Then suddenly it was morning. According to him, beings that he has since referred to as visitors entered his home and abducted him. Now, he also detailed another alien encounter that he claims took place in Toronto. Asleep in his Delta Chelsea hotel room in the middle of the night on June 6, 1998, Whitley claimed to have been visited by another mysterious stranger. "I got up to open the door thinking it was a room service waiter. It was not. It was a man I described as about 5.5 feet tall, older looking, like someone in his 70s. He wore dark-colored clothing, a turtleneck, and charcoal slacks. He claimed the visitor stood motionless by the window for nearly an hour, expounding on the dangers of creating an intelligence more involved than its creator. He said it was the most extraordinary conversation I've ever had in my life." Number 4. Frederick Valentine. On October 21st, 1978, Australian pilot Frederick Valentine disappeared into thin air. At 7:06 p.m., while at 4,500 feet, after departing, he reported that an unidentified craft was following him. Melbourne Flight Service insisted that there was no traffic near him, but the pilot was adamant. He explained that it had 4 bright lights and suddenly passed 1,000 feet above him at a remarkable speed. For 5 straight minutes...
This is strange to hear about this in a time where didn't we just have a jet go missing? Now, I haven't heard any update of whether or not we found it or not, but to hear that automatically makes me think about that jet.
As Frederick described its movements and shiny metallic exterior. Suddenly, he experienced engine trouble and said the aircraft was hovering and it's not an aircraft. Then they never heard from him again. The last sound radio officials heard was a metallic scraping sound. Now, authorities presume that he had crashed, but a later search of the area yielded nothing. In 2014, a UFO action group in Victoria alleged that a farmer observed a UFO nearly 90 feet in length hovering above his farm on the morning following Frederick's disappearance.
Again, a farm. Farms, fields. All right. Just keep paying attention, connecting the dots.
The farmer also claimed that the pilot's plane was stuck to the UFO, leaking oil. But again, Frederick and the plane have never been found. Ultimately, a few possibilities regarding the disappearance of Frederick exist: that he crashed and his remains were never covered, that he purposely disappeared, or, of course, he was abducted by aliens. Number 3. Audrey and Debbie Hewins. Twins Audrey and Debbie Hewin said they were abducted by aliens. I was probably about 5 years old or so, said Audrey, and a bright blue light would come into the room and the door would open, and there would be like a foggy kind of misty blue light just shining through the whole house, and these two figures would come in. We have been up in crafts and seen our house from above. They're very good at mind erasing, or whatever you want to call it. They'll leave you with bits and pieces of things that you can remember. Debbie added, I remember one time being on a spaceship and standing there on the spaceship and the floor and the walls disappeared. They started doing all kinds of experiments on us when we were 12. While she was initially hesitant to come forward, Audrey claimed that after a non-human entity saved her life from drowning in the ocean, she was inspired to dedicate her life to openly discussing her alien abduction experiences. Number 2. Travis Walton. On November 5th, 1975, Travis Walton was abducted by aliens and he didn't return for 5 whole days. Travis's abduction began after working at the Site Graves National Forest near Herbert, Arizona. Travis and a 6-man group of loggers were returning home when they allegedly spotted a shining disc spanning 40 feet in diameter hovering in the sky above them. He said it was a metallic glowing disc making some very strange sounds. The closer I got to it, the more scared we all got, and they were swearing at me to get away from there, and when I got up close, it suddenly got louder and started to move. Travis then claimed that non-human beings abducted him and experimented on him until he fought them off.
I wonder, you know what I wonder? Like, in this case right here, this one, for example, if he'd have been driving and not looked up and saw it, would he have been fine? You know what I mean? In the other cases with the people who came in contact with him, if they wouldn't have looked directly at him, I wonder, would they have been fine? You know what I mean? Maybe it's not until you see them that they feel the need to do something. Maybe change your memory or do something to your memory or something like that. I don't know. Just trying to piece it together, though.
But as the being supposedly poked and prodded at him on a kind of table, 5 days elapsed on Earth where Walton was officially declared missing. I became conscious inside the craft, and I believe I was in the hospital. I was in a lot of pain, and as I became more conscious, I looked around and saw alien beings, and I just panicked. They were much smaller than me, and I think that's the reason why they gave up. Once they found out they couldn't control me, they split. Now, later research conducted at the site of Travis's abduction showed an unusual growth rate in the trees where the craft had allegedly hovered. The trees near the site were found to be producing wood fiber at a rate of 36 times greater than they had been in the decades before. And coming in number 1 is Dr. Albert Bender. One of the most famous instances of alien invasion was the case of Dr. Albert Bender. Albert was a very intelligent researcher with an interest in aliens and UFOs, and even founded the International Flying Saucer Bureau. It was successful as he began to gather lots of alleged evidence related to UFOs, but soon he began seeing strange men watching him around his town, reportedly with glowing eyes. Then one night in 1953, 3 men in black showed up to his house. The mysterious men looked at first to be government agents, but he soon discovered they were something from a completely different realm. The men made it clear to Albert that he was to immediately stop all UFO research and investigation and to cease any publishing. They then confiscated most of his findings before threatening him once more and vanishing. Then he had a second encounter where he was visited by 3 shadowy figures. They did not touch the floor but hovered above it, and they told him that their human appearance was an illusion and that whatever information he told people about their visitation would not be believed. They supposedly told him that they capture people from Earth and use their bodies to disguise themselves. Now, due to all this, Albert was so afraid of the experience that he immediately halted all publishings, quit ufology, and turned into a completely different man. Years later, he published a book about his experience with the Men in Black and went on to manage a motel and never touched extraterrestrial research ever again.
Tonight, a 4.5 billion-year-old cosmic rock about to land back on Earth. This spacecraft, as you see there, is carrying a sample of rocks and dust from an asteroid named Bennu. And it's entering Earth's atmosphere at a velocity of 36 times the speed of sound. The sample is going to land in this desolate section of the Utah desert. That's important because Bennu overall is an asteroid the size of the Empire State Building. It has a real chance of smashing into Earth in 159.
Wow. I guess you never really think about how big these things can be, these asteroids, bro. That could potentially wipe us out one day, but you never think of how big these be. And when she put it into that type of context, wow.
Years. If that actually happens, it would hit Earth with the force of 22 atomic bombs. So NASA is hoping that this sample that they've obtained could help them figure out a way to prevent an impact and learn a lot more, obviously, about asteroids. Up front now, astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson. He is the head of the Hayden Planetarium, the host of Star Talk, and he just wrote his latest book, To Infinity and Beyond, A Journey of Cosmic Discovery. So, Neil, I relish all of our conversations. So you've got this asteroid, and, it's incredible. All the math of it. We get on there. You get a little piece of rock, all by a robot, and they brought it home. So what can a scientist actually learn from this 4.5 billion-year-old rock that's about to land in Utah?
Well, what we don't know for sure, when you think we would, but we just don't, is what's the structural integrity of asteroids. Only recently, in recent decades, did we learn some of them might just be rubble piles gathered together that are masquerading as a solid object. Others are sort of loosely held together. This matters because if you want to deflect an asteroid that might be headed your way, and you nudge one part of it, and it doesn't have the structural integrity to stay together, you can end up breaking off a piece, and your mission would then fail. So by looking at what the material contents of Bennu is through this sample return, which, by the way, we just have to just praise that this is working, okay? I gotta say, we launched OSIRIS-REx, this mission, 7 years ago from a moving platform, Earth, intersected a moving target, Bennu, an asteroid. It did a touch and go, grabbed material, came back to Earth, deployed that capsule, and it keeps going. It's going to visit more asteroids. And then people are saying, oh, I don't trust science. I mean, science this. It's like, do you know what we do?
Exactly. He's right, man. You know what I mean? And I go back and forth with Neil deGrasse Tyson all the time. You know what I mean? I don't always agree, but he's right in that, bro. Do you imagine what this could mean? Think about what happened with the dinosaurs. If you believe that dinosaurs once walked in and roamed the earth, right, and was taken out by an asteroid, think about that. That same fate can happen to us, mankind, right? And us deflecting an asteroid. Do y'all not understand how, huge that is to be able to do that? So all the steps that they're taking, oh man, this gets me excited, bro. This gets me excited because if asteroids don't sometimes keep you up at night, bro, I need to be like you. I need to be, because you never know when one can hit it any day without warning.
You have any idea?
I mean, it is pretty incredible. And then there's also the, oh my gosh, we can do that. And what a mess we make of so many much more simple things here at home, right?
Yes.
Okay, so if Bennu does hit Earth, and I know that we, obviously we can talk about odds, but if it were to, you're talking about something 22 times, is that what I said? 22 times the size of, or 22 atomic bombs. Let me make sure I say it exactly correctly. What would something like that do to Earth?
Well, it's not an extinction level a hit. Well, if it hits a city, that's really bad. But we would have some good idea of that well in advance, right? By the way, as we get closer to 2182, these odds will improve in the sense that it'll either go to zero or go to certainty. It's not going to still dangle in is it or is it not? And so that's an important first point. So if we know that it's going to hit, then we got to know where it's going to hit. If it hits a city, it takes out the city completely.
Wow.
But most of Earth is not city, and most of land is not occupied. So my fear is that if it hits the ocean, then you got a tsunami that could take out an entire coastline, right?
Wow.
But otherwise, it would destroy a county's worth of land. That's about it.
So,
I didn't even think about it hitting the water and causing a tsunami. And then to take it a step further than that, take out a coastline? Yeah. Y'all let them do what they do, bro. Stop complaining about where funds is going when we're talking about this type of stuff.
all right, I hope everyone will get your new book. You talk about parallel worlds, black holes, wormholes, time travel, all these questions people have. One thing that a lot of people are talking about lately, and NASA even now has a head of UFOs, right? Congress has a hearing on UFOs. And so people are talking about UFOs and aliens in a more serious way than being on the front of the National Enquirer, the way it used to be. So a Mexican journalist displayed bodies of two supposed non-human beings in front of the Congress in Mexico. Okay, each with three-fingered hands and elongated heads. Now, before we all mock the video, right? Because it's gotten a lot of mocking. It looks a lot like ET. But as I said, NASA just announced for the first time a director of research on UFOs. So they are taking this overall topic more seriously. What's your take on this?
Well, first of all, I like what they did in Mexico. They had what they claimed are alien bodies. They brought it out in front of their Congress. That's better than leaving them in a locked box and saying you and no one else can get to see them. So that's a start. But in science, a new truth, an objective truth is only established when multiple labs can analyze whatever your claim is. When we brought rocks back from the moon, we distributed them to all the labs of the world. So everybody participated in that discovery. So here, bring out samples to others and let other people, skeptical people in other labs, test this. They'll either verify it or falsify it, and then we move on. What
was your reaction when you saw the images?
I was surprised because if they're from another planet, why do they look so human? They have two eyes, a nose, a mouth, shoulders, hips, femur, a rib. Why? Most life on Earth shares DNA in common with us. It looks nothing like us. So how could it somebody? So that was my first thought. Second, any corpses or mummified remains, there is no bone in your nose. It's an open hole into your skull. These aliens have intact noses, if indeed that is their nose, I don't know for sure. That's odd after 2,000 years to still have a nose with two cavities in it.
All that, I'm with him though. Let them send around samples of that so other scientists can test it so we can get some information back. You know what I mean? It shouldn't just stop with them presenting it, showing it, and then taking it and putting it back up in storage somewhere.
So that's odd, but they should share it. That's how we determine what is true and what is not.
All right, Neil, thanks so much. Great to talk to you.
Thanks for.
Listen, man, y'all get at me in the comment section though, and let me know what you think. Do you agree with Neil? Do you think that samples should be sent out? Do you think that they shouldn't have to? How do y'all feel about it? Matter of fact, how do y'all feel about what you saw? Do you believe? Are you on the skeptic side of it, or what? You know what I mean? I think a lot is happening right now, and we all need to think about this and figure out what's going on here. Y'all get at me in the comment section, man. Let me know what you think. Stick around and stay tuned. Till next one, I'm gone. Peace.